Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm going to talk for the next 15 minutes or so about the online or virtual film festival. I'm going to talk in particular on the kind of emerging politics around the choice of going online or not going online and what it augurs for the future. So, with cinemas around the world closed or reconfigured for socially distanced audiences, COVID-19 has turned the film festival landscape upside down. Film festivals, once focused exclusively on physically sighted activities, have typically been faced with the choice of cancelling or going wholly or partially online. Most have chosen the latter, but the move has been a problematic one. Online exhibition has challenged the traditional role of the film festival as a gathering place for audiences, filmmakers, and industry representatives. It's also reopened the tricky question of how cinema should situate itself within the broader media culture of video streaming. As such, different film festivals' different responses to online programming form a microcosm of and a kind of flashpoint for one of the defining challenges currently facing the world's film industries: how to engage with digital distribution. Two possible paths in particular are emerging for the post-pandemic film festival. The first is to continue with hybrid live and digital programs. The second is to abandon the last year's digital experiments and go back to how things were. It's still too early to tell which way most film festivals will go, but either way, the impact on global film distribution and exhibition will be significant. Okay, so that's my abstract, and that's basically my talk. And I want to take the rest of my talk to kind of gloss some of the themes that came up in those first few lines. So, over the last 14 months, pretty much every arts sector in the world has had to engage with providing some kind of online programming if it's wanted to continue serving audiences. And many sectors and organisations have gone online with varying degrees of success. But one thing that's been quite interesting to me as somebody who's currently running a research project on online arts and culture is where there have been some quite unexpected successes. And many of the more traditional cultural forms like theatre, opera, ballet, classical music have actually provided some really effective models for moving online and as a result being able to generate revenue and widen audiences. Classical music, for example, classical music concerts have typically, especially for larger orchestras, gathered huge global audiences. Just to provide one statistic, the London Symphony Orchestra, since it went online, about 60% of its audience has come from North America. So that's 60% of its audience is people who would never ever probably have been able to hear an LSO concert, who are now regularly tuning in. And given these various sort of unexpected successes in terms of online programming, one might have thought that film festivals move online would be pretty seamless and frictionless. After all, most films are already seen online. Well, technologically, yes, it's been very simple. When CPH Docs first film festival to go online, when they made the choice to go online, they had a flurry of phone calls, and within 72 hours, their entire program had been uploaded to a platform and was ready to go. But there are many cultural factors working against film festivals moving online. Film festivals are built on the shared experience of cinema going. They celebrate the public act of cinephilia. More pragmatically, moving online has also could at least threaten the traditional role of the film festival within the global film economy. And I'm talking in particular here about larger kind of international film festivals. As sites of national premieres, international film festivals form an integral part of the film industry's geographically segmented ecosystem. Their role is to provide a springboard for the release of films in particular national territories, or territories is what they call them. Making films too freely available online risks not only undermining film festivals' own role in the global distribution and exhibition ecosystem, but also to undermine that ecosystem itself. So there's a big risk, there was initially at least a big risk inherent in going online. In addition, film festivals also function as local boosters. They're very tightly integrated with the local tourism economy, as many people have previously written, and they bring people and money into cities and regions, and they serve in a way, their key stakeholder is local government, local business, all of whom, of course, have a great vested interest in the continued prosperity of the physically sited film festival. And so there's two ways in which going online doesn't really work within the traditional model of film festivals. It doesn't fit either international film festivals' roles as territorial gateways or their roles as regional boosters. And not surprisingly, I think there's a kind of almost like a straight line inverse relationship between film festival size and the openness to going online. Simply put, the bigger the festival is, the more likely it is to be a national gateway and a regional tourism booster, and the less value it will see in going online. The smaller the film festival, the less it has to lose. The less likely it is to have, film distributors arguing with it. The more likely it is to be dealing with independent or, even no-budget filmmakers who are happy to have their films shown anywhere. That said, most film festivals, vast majority of film festivals over the last year have chosen one route towards maintaining the status quo, and that is geo-blocking. A few festivals, especially festivals showing experimental films like Images Festival in Toronto, Oberhausen in Germany, have not geo-blocked, but generally the pressure from producers and distributors has pushed film festivals to only show films online within their countries. But even if there hadn't been this pressure from distributors and producers to geo-block, I think most film festivals would have wanted it and done it anyway. And interestingly, last year there was a petition initiated by Thessaloniki Film Festival trying to persuade other film festivals to commit to geo-blocking. Well, in the end, not many people signed the petition, but everybody geo-blocked anyway, and it wasn't an issue. But it highlighted the fact that festivals themselves, in some ways, are dependent on geo-blocking because little thought experiment. If they didn't geo-block, what would happen? There are thousands and thousands and thousands of festivals out there in the world, and not enough really good quality content to go around all of them. So every global film festival would be in direct competition with every other global film festival. And what you'd basically have would be the vast majority of film festivals ultimately folding. Excuse me, I'm running out of power, so I'm just going to plug my laptop in. But beyond the distinction between larger and smaller festivals more likely to be friendly to online, large international festivals less likely to be friendly to online, what I find particularly interesting at this moment in time, and particularly politically significant, is that among the larger international film festivals, there is a clear divergence of opinion. So even along the sort of a horizontal axis, there's a pull in two directions. Currently, the default film festival taking place now is still hybrid. We're not out of a pandemic yet. There's really no need to choose sides to make the bigger decision about whether you want your future festivals to be hybrid or to be physical only. That's a choice to be made at some stage later. But what's, I think, significant is that a number of the most prominent international festivals have already made the call. They've already chosen sides. And on one side is kind of, I suppose, not surprisingly, the old European festivals. Cannes cancelled its public programme last year. Berlin cancelled its public programme this year, though interestingly both decided to have an industry section that was online. They couldn't quite bring themselves around to abandoning their industry stakeholders. Venice was live only last year and will be live only this year. Locarno had a very weird hybridity last year. New feature films would only be shown physically in Locarno, but films from the Locarno archive and new short films were put up online, not geo-blocked actually, and for free, which is a very interesting distinction. But Locarno now is going back to full physical. On the other side, though, you have, let's say, more progressive festivals, festivals which have had access successes and which want to build on them. Notably, Sundance, Rotterdam, CPH Docs, IDFA, which I'm actually got my festival t-shirt there, which have seen vastly expanded national numbers because of going online and want to hold on to them. And Sundance is particularly interesting in this regard. You could say maybe Sundance is a bit more open to going digital because it's closer to new film money, Netflix, Amazon, Apple money. But actually, the reason seems to be because the 2021 online Sundance Festival was so successful and got such large audiences that in the period of self-reflection that followed, and as somebody who kind of, through VPN went to Sundance, I got a survey which was the most detailed survey I've ever got from an arts organisation in my life. And they really, crunched the numbers and found that people really loved it, and it had tremendous access benefits. And so now they are committed to going online. So what we have basically, I think, is an emerging schism between, let me say, more progressively minded film festivals that are engaging with their national audiences. And Sundance is, again, interesting in that respect, because as well as staying online, they're also going to continue with the regional hub model, which is going to mean that Sundance films in future will not just play in an isolated mountain resort in Utah, but will also play in a range of cities across the United States. Again, another attempt to broaden geographic access, albeit national, not international. So on the one hand, you've got the sort of the more progressive festivals, and on the other hand, you've got, let's say, a rump of traditional festivals who don't want anything to change. Most festivals have not yet had to declare. So which will become the post-pandemic model for the film festival is anyone's guess. I think the interesting moment will come in 3 or 6 months' time when festivals will have a free choice between going physical or staying hybrid. It's then that the moment of truth will come. And what will happen then? Well, it's hard to imagine two such drastically different models of the International Film Festival coexisting, the live and the physically sighted and online hybrid festival, plus, coexisting with the only physical festival. That would be quite weird and, lead to very strange choices to be made by film producers and filmmakers choosing which festivals to put their films at and how different festivals would relate. Like, how would Sundance, then relate to New York Film Festival if Sundance is showing films in New York? New York surely has to also go national so it can show films to people, in other parts of the country to counterbalance the fact that Sundance is entering New York. So it's hard to imagine both those models coexisting, but it's even harder to imagine either side, or those who have declared on either side giving ground. Impossible to imagine Sundance giving up on the online model, but impossible also to imagine Cannes deciding, after the pandemic, having decided never to go online, actually to put on an online program. And ultimately, no matter what happens, the question of whether film festivals stay online or not I think will have a very significant ripple effect on global film distribution and on the global film industry itself. Thank you.